The Broken Empire. First contact gone wrong. Commander Thane Reeves stared at the massive display screen aboard the UES Horizon, watching something he had never expected to see during humanity's third deep space exploration mission. Hundreds of alien ships drifted through space in complete chaos. Some were clearly military vessels, their hulls scarred by weapons fire. Others appeared to be civilian transports, packed far beyond their intended capacity. "Sir, we're receiving distress signals from at least 50 different vessels," reported Lieutenant Sarah Chen from the communications station. "The translation software is working, but their language is complex. They're calling for help, but I'm also picking up what sounds like military commands and retreat orders." Thane ran a hand through his graying hair. At 42, he had been chosen to command the Horizon specifically because of his experience handling unexpected situations. The ship was humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, equipped with the latest technology and a crew of 300 carefully selected individuals. Their mission was simple: explore the Outer Rim territories, catalog new worlds, and hopefully make peaceful contact with intelligent alien species. This was definitely not what they had planned for. "Lieutenant Commander Park, what's your tactical assessment?" Thane asked his security chief. Marcus Park, a former military officer who had joined the exploration service, studied his sensor readings carefully. "Sir, I'm detecting weapons signatures from multiple ship types, but they're not targeting us. It looks like there are two distinct factions here. The larger ships appear to be retreating while smaller, more aggressive vessels are pursuing them." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's xenobiologist and first contact specialist, moved closer to the main display. "Commander, if I'm interpreting these readings correctly, we're looking at a massive refugee situation. Those larger ships aren't military vessels. They're carrying families, civilians, maybe entire populations." Before Thane could respond, the communication system crackled to life. The voice that emerged was deep and resonant, speaking in heavily accented but understandable English. "Unknown vessel, this is Ambassador Zextar of the Keltharian Empire. We have detected your ship and request immediate assistance. Our people are dying, and our empire is falling to rebellion. We do not know what species you represent, but we beg for your help." The ambassador's plea. The main screen flickered and displayed the image of an alien unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. Ambassador Zextar stood nearly 8 feet tall, with deep blue skin marked by intricate silver patterns that seemed to shift in the light. His head was elongated, with large, intelligent eyes that held an unmistakable expression of desperation. Most remarkably, he had 6 arms, each ending in hands that possessed both grace and obvious strength. "I am Commander Thane Reeves of the Earth Ship Horizon," Thane replied, making sure his voice remained calm and diplomatic. "We are explorers from a planet called Earth. We received your distress signals and came to investigate." Zextar's expression changed to one of surprise, then hope. "Earth. We have no records of your species in our databases, yet your vessel appears highly advanced, and your language suggests intelligence and civilization. Commander Reeves, the Keltharian Empire has existed for over 2,000 years. We have brought peace and order to 15 star systems, protected dozens of worlds, and fostered trade across this entire sector of the galaxy." The ambassador paused, and Thane could see the pain in those alien eyes. 3 years ago, a faction of our own people began a rebellion. They call themselves the New Order, led by a former general named Factor. They claim our empire has grown weak and corrupt, that we have failed to adapt to changing times. They have conquered 7 of our worlds and are driving the loyal populations into exile. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic protocol. "Ambassador, may I ask about your military capabilities? From our observations, it appears your forces are being overwhelmed." Zextar's silver markings seemed to dim with embarrassment. "Our military doctrine has remained unchanged for centuries. We believed in the strength of large, heavily armored warships and formal battle tactics. The rebels use smaller, faster ships in coordinated swarm attacks. They strike quickly and disappear before our weapons can target them effectively. They have adapted, while we have not. Lieutenant Chen looked up from her station urgently. Commander, I'm detecting new contacts approaching fast. Multiple small vessels, heading directly for the refugee convoy. Humanity's choice. The tactical display lit up with red warning indicators as 30 rebel ships emerged from hyperspace. They moved with deadly precision, forming attack patterns that would allow them to strike at the most vulnerable refugee transports while avoiding the few Keltharian military vessels that remained. Ambassador, Thane said quickly, we need to move your people to safety immediately. How many civilians are we talking about? Nearly 1 million souls, Sextar replied, his voice heavy with sorrow. The last free population of the Keltharian core worlds. If they are captured or killed, our empire dies with them. Marcus Park ran rapid calculations on his tactical computer. Sir, those rebel ships will be in weapons range in 8 minutes. The Keltharian military vessels are too few and too slow to protect all the transports. Thane felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. Humanity's first contact protocols were clear. Observe, communicate, but do not interfere in alien conflicts. The Horizon was an exploration ship, not a warship. Its defensive capabilities were designed to protect against unknown hazards in space, not to fight in an alien civil war. But as he looked at the tactical display, seeing hundreds of thousands of innocent lives about to be destroyed, Thane realized that sometimes protocol had to give way to basic human decency. Lieutenant Commander Park, bring our defensive systems online. Dr. Vasquez, prepare emergency medical facilities. Lieutenant Chen, open a channel to all ships in the area. Sir, Park said carefully, are you sure about this? We could be starting an interstellar incident. Thane smiled grimly. Sometimes doing the right thing is more important than following rules. Besides, they attacked first. The communication channel opened, and Thane's voice carried to every ship in the system. This is Commander Thane Reeves of the United Earth Ship Horizon. All civilian vessels, move to coordinates I'm transmitting now. We will provide defensive cover during your evacuation. The Battle of Keltharian Point. The rebel ships approached with confident aggression, clearly expecting to overwhelm the few remaining Imperial defenders. What they encountered instead was something entirely outside their experience. The UES Horizon moved with a grace that seemed impossible for a ship of its size. Its advanced engines allowed for maneuvers that defied conventional physics, while its defensive systems created energy barriers that could stop weapons fire from multiple directions simultaneously. Incoming plasma torpedoes, Park reported calmly. Impact in 15 seconds. Deploy adaptive shielding, Thane ordered. Let's see what these rebels are really capable of. The Horizon's shields flared to life, creating a brilliant blue barrier around the ship. The rebel weapons struck with tremendous force, but the human technology simply absorbed the energy and redistributed it harmlessly into space. Dr. Vasquez watched the battle from her science station, analyzing the rebel tactics with professional interest. Commander, their attack patterns are actually quite sophisticated. They're using coordinated strikes to overwhelm defensive systems through sheer volume of fire. Against conventional defenses, this would be devastatingly effective. But our defenses aren't conventional, Thane replied. Lieutenant Commander Park, are you ready to demonstrate why humans developed adaptive combat doctrine? Park smiled with grim satisfaction. Yes, sir. Initiating tactical response pattern Alpha. Instead of engaging the rebel ships directly, the Horizon began moving through the battlefield like a shepherd protecting its flock. Its advanced sensors tracked every enemy vessel while its point defense systems created safe corridors for the refugee transports. When rebel ships tried to break through to attack the civilians, they found themselves facing defensive fire that seemed to anticipate their every move. The rebels quickly realized They were facing something beyond their understanding. Their weapons couldn't penetrate the human ship's defenses, while their own ships were being systematically disabled by precise, non-lethal strikes that targeted engines and weapon systems without destroying the vessels entirely. Ambassador Zextar watched from his flagship in amazement. "Commander Reeves, your combat capabilities are unlike anything in our databases, yet you are not destroying the rebel ships. Why show mercy to those who would slaughter civilians?" Thane's voice carried a quiet strength that impressed even the ancient alien diplomat. "Because they're still your people, Ambassador. This is a civil war, not a war of extinction. Maybe there's a way to end this conflict without more death." Seeds of understanding. As the last of the refugee transports moved to safety behind the horizon's protective shields, the rebel fleet found itself in an impossible position. They couldn't advance without facing human defenses they couldn't overcome, but they also couldn't retreat without losing face among their own forces. It was then that something unexpected happened. One of the rebel ships transmitted a message directly to the horizon. "Human vessel, this is Captain Morden of the rebel fleet. I request permission to speak with your commander." Thane looked around his bridge, seeing the curiosity and concern on his crew's faces. "Granted, Captain. You're speaking to Commander Reeves." The alien who appeared on the screen was clearly of the same species as Ambassador Zextar, but younger and with more aggressive bearing. His silver markings were arranged in different patterns, and his eyes held the fire of someone fighting for deeply held beliefs. "Commander Reeves, your intervention has saved the Imperial refugees today, but you do not understand the situation here. The Keltharian Empire is corrupt and stagnant. For 1,000 years, they have refused to change, refused to grow, refused to adapt to new challenges. We fight not from hatred, but from necessity." Dr. Vasquez looked intrigued. "Captain Morden, what kind of changes does your movement seek?" "We want to modernize our military, reform our government, and open our society to new ideas and technologies. The Imperial leadership clings to ancient traditions that no longer serve our people's needs. They would rather see our civilization die than admit they have been wrong." Ambassador Zextar's voice carried pain and anger. "You speak of reform while murdering innocents and destroying worlds. This is not the way of progress, Morden. And your way has led us to the brink of extinction," the rebel captain replied. "How many more worlds will fall to external threats because our military tactics are centuries out of date? How many of our people will suffer because our leaders refuse to embrace necessary changes?" Thane found himself in the middle of something far more complex than a simple civil war. Both sides had legitimate concerns, but their conflict was tearing apart an entire civilization. As he listened to the arguments between the Imperial ambassador and the rebel captain, an idea began to form in his mind. "Gentlemen," Thane interrupted, "perhaps this conversation would be more productive if we continued it in person. I'm inviting both of you aboard the Horizon for a face-to-face meeting. Maybe it's time for an outside perspective on your problems." Both aliens looked surprised by the suggestion, but after a moment of consideration, they agreed. As the human ship prepared to receive its first alien diplomatic mission, Thane wondered if humanity was about to make its first real contribution to galactic civilization. The human solution. Unlikely diplomacy. The conference room aboard the UES Horizon had been hastily modified to accommodate alien physiology. Two specially designed chairs faced each other across a table that could adjust to different heights and angles. The lighting had been dimmed to a comfortable level for Keltharian eyes, and the temperature lowered to account for their different metabolic needs. Ambassador Zextar sat rigidly in his chair, his 6 arms folded in what Dr. Vasquez had determined was a formal diplomatic posture. Across from him, Captain Morden maintained a more relaxed but alert stance, clearly ready for either negotiation or conflict. Commander Thane Reeves sat at the head of the table, with Dr. Vasquez to his right and Lieutenant Commander Park to his left. The symbolic arrangement placed the humans as mediators rather than participants in the ancient alien conflict. "Before we begin," Thane said carefully, I want to establish some ground rules. We're not here to take sides or impose human solutions on Keltharian problems. We're here to facilitate a conversation that might prevent the destruction of your entire civilization. Zextar's silver markings shifted to a pattern that indicated skepticism. Commander, with respect, your species has existed in space for perhaps a few decades. Our empire has survived for 2 millennia. What could you possibly offer that we have not already considered? Dr. Vasquez leaned forward slightly. Ambassador, sometimes fresh eyes can see solutions that experience overlooks. On Earth, we have a saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. Perhaps our outsider perspective might reveal options you haven't explored. Captain Morden made a sound that the translation software interpreted as bitter laughter. The only option the Imperial leadership understands is maintaining their grip on power while our civilization crumbles around them. And the only option your rebels understand is destroying everything our ancestors built. Zextar replied sharply. You speak of reform, but your methods are those of conquest and terror. Thane raised his hand for silence. Let's start with something basic. Captain Morden, what specific changes do you believe the Empire needs? The rebel captain's posture shifted to something more thoughtful. Our military doctrine hasn't evolved in centuries. We still fight as though space battles are formal duels between individual ships. Modern warfare requires coordination, flexibility, and rapid adaptation to changing tactical situations. Our traditions have served us well, Zextar protested. They provide stability and honor to our conflicts. They provide predictability to our enemies, Morden countered. External threats no longer respect our traditions or fight according to our expectations. While we maintain formal battle lines, pirates and hostile species use guerrilla tactics that our commanders cannot counter effectively. Dr. Vasquez made notes on her tablet. What about governmental reforms? Are there political changes your movement seeks? Morden's markings shifted to indicate careful consideration. The Imperial Council consists of hereditary positions passed down through family lines. Many council members have never left their homeworlds, yet they make decisions affecting billions of lives across dozens of systems. We need representatives who understand the challenges facing frontier colonies and trade worlds. The council system ensures continuity and wisdom, Zextar argued. These families have guided our empire through crises for generations. But have they guided us through changes as dramatic as what we face now? Thane asked gently. Ambassador, when was the last time your empire encountered a completely new type of challenge that required abandoning traditional responses? The question seemed to catch Zextar off guard. His markings dimmed as he considered the implications. That is, our methods have always proven adequate for the challenges we faced. Lieutenant Commander Park spoke up for the first time. Ambassador, military history teaches us that the most dangerous enemy is the one who adapts faster than you do. If your opponents are using new tactics while you rely on old ones, the outcome is usually predetermined. Cultural exchange. As the conversation continued, Dr. Vasquez began to understand the deeper cultural issues underlying the Keltharian Civil War. The Empire had achieved such stability and success over the centuries that change itself had become viewed as dangerous and unnecessary. Tell me about your educational systems, she asked. How do young Keltharians learn about technology, strategy, and governance? Zextar's expression brightened with obvious pride. Our educational traditions are among our greatest achievements. Young citizens study the classical texts, learn the proven methods that built our civilization, and master the techniques that have served us for generations. But do they learn to question those methods? Dr. Vasquez pressed. Do they study alternative approaches or experiment with new ideas? Why would they need to? Zextar seemed genuinely puzzled. Our ways have proven successful. Teaching alternatives would only create confusion and undermine confidence in established wisdom. Captain Morden's markings flashed with frustrated energy. This is exactly the problem. An entire generation of leaders who have never been taught to think beyond what their ancestors did. When faced with new challenges, they can only repeat old solutions, even when those solutions no longer work. Thane began to see the shape of a possible solution. On Earth, we have a concept called adaptive thinking. It means maintaining respect for proven methods while remaining open to improvement and change. The key is knowing when to preserve tradition and when to embrace innovation. How does your species manage this balance? Zextar asked, his curiosity overcoming his skepticism. Dr. Vasquez smiled. We teach our children to question everything, including the questions themselves. We preserve knowledge of what worked in the past, but we also encourage experimentation with what might work better in the future. Our greatest achievements usually come from combining old wisdom with new insights. That sounds chaotic, Zextar said with concern. It can be, Thane admitted. But chaos managed properly becomes innovation. The same energy that destroys old systems can be channeled to build better ones. Captain Morton leaned forward with interest. You speak as though it is possible to change systems without destroying them entirely. Not only possible, Park added, but preferable. Revolutions that destroy everything usually create more problems than they solve. The most successful changes in human history have been those that preserve the best of the old while carefully introducing the best of the new. The Horizons proposal. After several hours of discussion, Thane felt they had identified the core issues driving the Keltharian Civil War. The Empire needed to modernize without losing its identity, while the rebels needed to reform without destroying the civilization they claimed to protect. I have a proposal, Thane announced, but it will require courage and compromise from both sides. Both aliens turned their attention to the human commander, their ancient conflict momentarily set aside by curiosity about what this young species might suggest. Ambassador Zextar, your empire needs military and governmental reforms. That much is clear. But Captain Morton, your methods are creating more problems than they solve. What if there was a way to achieve the changes you want without continuing this war? What do you suggest? Morton asked cautiously. A trial period, Thane replied. Select one star system as a test case. Implement the reforms that both sides agree are necessary. Military modernization, representative government, educational updates. If the reforms work, expand them gradually to other systems. If they fail, revert to the old methods. Zextar's markings showed deep concern. You ask us to risk an entire system on untested theories. You're already risking your entire empire on a civil war, Dr. Vasquez pointed out. At least this way, you're testing solutions instead of just fighting over problems. Captain Morton considered the proposal carefully. Which system would serve as the test case, and who would oversee the implementation to ensure fairness? Thane smiled. That's where humanity comes in. We propose to serve as neutral observers and advisors. We have no stake in your internal politics, but we do have experience with both military modernization and governmental reform. You would do this for us? Zextar asked, his skepticism replaced by wonder. What would your species gain from such an arrangement? Knowledge, Dr. Vasquez replied simply. Cultural exchange with the first alien civilization we've encountered. Scientific collaboration, perhaps friendship, if we prove worthy of it. The two Keltharians exchanged looks that conveyed volumes of unspoken communication. Finally, Captain Morton spoke. If such a trial could be arranged, my forces would agree to a ceasefire in the selected system. And if the Imperial Council approves the experiment, Zextar added slowly, we could authorize the necessary legal framework for implementation. The Genesis system experiment. 3 months later, the UES Horizon orbited the fourth planet of the Genesis system, humanity's first permanent diplomatic mission in alien space. The system had been chosen as the test case because it contained both Imperial loyalists and rebel sympathizers, making it an ideal laboratory for testing new approaches to Keltharian governance. Commander Thane Reeves stood in the observation deck, watching construction crews from both sides working together to build new governmental facilities on Jenna Prime. The sight would have been impossible to imagine just a few months earlier. Dr. Vasquez joined him at the observation window, carrying a tablet full of progress reports. "The integration of military units is proceeding faster than expected," she reported. "Imperial officers are learning rebel tactics, while rebel commanders are studying Imperial strategy and discipline. The combined approach is proving remarkably effective." "What about the governmental reforms?" Thane asked. "More complicated, but promising. The new council includes both hereditary representatives and elected officials. There's still tension, but they're actually debating policy instead of just defending traditional positions." Lieutenant Commander Park approached with his own report. "Sir, we've received communications from 3 other Keltharian systems requesting information about the Jenna experiment. Word is spreading about the cooperative approach." Thane nodded with satisfaction. "Any problems we need to address?" "Some resistance from hardliners on both sides," Park admitted. "There are Imperial nobles who see the reforms as threats to their authority, and rebel factions who think Morden has compromised their principles. But Ambassador Zextar and Captain Morden have been effective at managing the opposition." Through the observation window, they could see a group of young Keltharians working alongside human engineers to install new communication systems. The sight represented something unprecedented in galactic history. 2 species learning from each other as equals rather than conqueror and conquered. "Commander," Dr. Vasquez said thoughtfully, "do you think this experiment will actually end their civil war?" Thane considered the question carefully. "I think it's given them something more valuable than victory: hope. Both sides now have evidence that change is possible without destruction, that they can preserve what they value while improving what needs improvement. New alliances." 6 months after the first diplomatic meeting aboard the Horizon, Ambassador Zextar and Captain Morden stood together on the bridge of a new class of Keltharian warship. The vessel combined Imperial engineering excellence with rebel tactical innovations, creating something more effective than either side could have built alone. "The other star systems are requesting their own trial programs," Sextar reported to Commander Reeves via subspace communication. "The Imperial Council has authorized expansion of the cooperative model to 5 additional systems." Captain Morden added his own update. "Rebel forces throughout the Empire are laying down arms in exchange for participation in the reform process. We estimate that active hostilities will end within another 3 months." Thane smiled as he watched the tactical display showing Keltharian ships of both factions working together to patrol their territory against external threats. "What about your military effectiveness? Are the combined tactics working against real enemies?" "Better than we ever imagined," Morden replied with satisfaction. "Last week, a pirate fleet attacked the Kellis system expecting to face traditional Imperial defenses. Instead, they encountered coordinated squadrons using adaptive tactics. The pirates were defeated with minimal casualties on our side." Dr. Vasquez leaned into the communication pickup. "Ambassador, how are the cultural changes being received by your population?" "With surprising enthusiasm," Zextar admitted. "Our young people especially appreciate the new educational programs that encourage creative thinking alongside traditional learning. Even many older citizens acknowledge that change was necessary." "And what about humanity's role going forward?" Thane asked. "Do you still need our guidance, or are you ready to manage the transition independently?" Both aliens exchanged the look that had become familiar during their months of cooperation. "Commander," Zextar said formally, "the Keltharian Empire would like to propose a permanent alliance with the United Earth government. Not as dependents, but as partnership between equals." Captain Morden nodded agreement. "Your species has shown us that strength comes not from rigid adherence to tradition, but from the wisdom to preserve what works while embracing what works better. We would be honored to share that journey with humanity." Epilogue. The Galactic Standard. 1 year later, the UES Horizon had been joined by 5 other human vessels in what was now called the Keltharian Human Cooperation Zone. The experimental reforms had spread to all 15 Imperial systems, effectively ending the Civil War and transforming the ancient empire into something entirely new, a federation that balanced stability with adaptability. Commander Thane Reeves, now promoted to admiral and serving as humanity's first ambassador to alien space, received regular reports from throughout the reformed Keltharian Federation. The news was consistently positive. Economic growth, technological advancement, and social harmony were all improving as the two-species partnership deepened. But perhaps more importantly, word of the Keltharian transformation had spread to other parts of the galaxy. 3 different alien civilizations had sent diplomatic missions requesting human assistance with their own internal conflicts. Humanity had somehow become known as the species that could find peaceful solutions to seemingly impossible problems. Dr. Vasquez, now serving as director of the new Institute for Interspecies Relations on Jenna Prime, often reflected on how a simple exploration mission had evolved into humanity's first steps toward galactic leadership. "We didn't set out to become mediators and reformers," she would tell her students. "We just did what humans do. We saw people who needed help, and we found a way to help them." As Admiral Reeves looked out at the stars from his office on the rebuilt orbital station above Jenna Prime, he knew that humanity's greatest adventures were just beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of civilizations facing challenges that might be solved through cooperation, innovation, and the simple human belief that almost any problem could be overcome with enough creativity and goodwill. The question that had started it all, "What is a human warship doing here?" had been answered in a way none of them could have predicted. They weren't there as conquerors or observers, but as partners in building a better future for all intelligent species in the galaxy. And that, Admiral Reeves thought with satisfaction, was exactly what humanity did best.